Welcome to Just Say This, the place to get all the help you need for the birds and bees talks. I'm your host, Amy Lang. Just a quick reminder, this show is for grown-ups because I'll be swearing. There'll be lots of swears, and then I'll also be talking about grown-up sex. I can guarantee that your kids do not want to listen to this, and they really don't want to listen to it with you. You've been warned. Do you have a question for me? Please give me a call. The phone number is 206-926-1522, 206-926-1522, and I will answer on the show. And if you have a funny sex talk story, please call in those as well. 206-926-1522. Thanks. Hey, hello. Thank you for being a listener. And a couple of commercial interruptions. Well, I'm not interrupting, commercial starters. If you are not getting my newsletter, I highly recommend you pop over to birdsandbeesandkids.com. Click on the freebie in the corner, and that will get you signed up. You can also do that at the bottom of the homepage or bottom of any page. Anyway, please do that. Share the love with your pals. And if you've been a long-time listener, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. Okay, done with that. All right, remember last episode when I mentioned something about grown-up stuff and phones? Here it is. I was Googling around the other day, and I saw an article, and it said something about Phub, P-H-U-B. And I was like, Phub and phones and adults. And I'm like, what the fuck is Phub? So then I, of course, click on the article. And here's the thing. This is going to sound very familiar to you because you're a human being and you probably have a phone and you probably do this to some degree or another. Phubbing is a combination of the word phone and snubbing. Phubbing. What this is when somebody is on their phone, they're involved in a conversation, they're having dinner, they're having coffee with somebody, and they are looking at the phone while the other stuff is going on. That's phubbing, phone snubbing. It is rude. It is something I make every effort not to do. And it is something that it's not nice. And if you think about it, before we had phones, you would never, ever turn away from someone and start talking to somebody else randomly, unless there was a reason, right? You wouldn't just be in a conversation and there's a little pause, or there's a little something, or there's a little itch, and you wouldn't suddenly just ignore the person you're with. So that's phubbing. Not good, socially shitty. So I'm going to encourage you to stop doing that because rude. Here's the other reason. Our kids are watching us. We're doing this to our children. You're having conversation, you're making dinner, your kid comes home, they ask you a question, you're doing your blah blah, and then you're like, look at your phone because you got a bingy dingy. Turn your ringer off. You're looking at your phone. You're not paying attention to your child. You're having an interaction with your parenting partner, with a friend. Something comes on. Bing, flash. You look at your phone. This is teaching them that what is most important, what's more important than them? Your fucking phone. Now, this is going to require some behavioral changes. It feels good to look at your phone. You get a dopamine hit. You get to look at my helping other parents on my lovely little Facebook page and the Instagrams. Your friend texts you. Anything can happen. You get an email bing and you look at your phone. So I'm going to give you some homework, which is to you don't have to stop, but just notice when you're doing this. Or maybe even more easily or differently, watch other people. Watch when they do this. And one of the reasons you need to stop this shit is that when your kids get to be teenagers, they already aren't interested in you, so they can phub the bejesus out of you. They're probably already phubbing you. And this is probably part of your family culture. I mean, I know we've all been out at dinner and watched a whole family of people looking at their phones and giving kids iPads and no intercourse at the table. Just kidding. no social intercourse, no conversations are happening. And so this is not okay. We're raising a generation, and we are raising ourselves to be more interested in bullshit. It's total bullshit, whatever's happening online. I realize that the Trumplet was just indicted or whatever the fuck that is. That's important to know, but is it more important than having a conversation with your kid? Is it more important than spending time with your friend and have no distractions? And I'm ranting about this, and I want you to know that of course I'm guilty of this, but I work really hard not to do this. And I put my phone away. My ringer is not on. The only bing bongs I get are alerts I get are texts and Voxers, I think. Am I getting those? Maybe. I don't know. Nothing else. When I get an email, I don't give two fat fucks. I have time when I look at my email. When somebody posts on my Facebook or whatever, I'm getting those for business because, I got to pay attention to that. But that's it. So put your phone away. Again, just watch yourself. Watch yourself. And then when you're the victim of this, think about how it feels. It's gross. And then think of your kids. Imagine that you asked your mom a question, or you're in the kitchen and you're having a conversation, or something's going on. And next thing you know, she's looking at her phone, or your dad, or whoever. Imagine that. It's not good. So that's phubbing. That's your scolding for the week. And again, we didn't mean for this to happen. And again, it's dopamine, right? So find another way to get your rocks off. Like, I don't know, go masturbate. Just kidding. Maybe not kidding. Anyway, you managed to make it to this point in time without doing this. And at the end of the day, this is not good for our culture. It is not good for our kids. It is not good for anybody. So back up your phubbing, have timeouts with your phone, put it away, make a show of putting your phone away. Like if you catch yourself phubbing, then say, oh my God, I am being super rude, and put the fucking thing down and don't touch it. Don't touch it. All right, there you go. Phubbing. On with our question today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a listener, and good luck with this. It is a rough one, especially for some folks.
Hi, Amy. My name is Eve, and I have a 10-year-old daughter, and I've been listening to your podcast and reading books with the kiddos for a while. And even though I'm not doing as great as I'd like to be, I think I'm all right. But now that my kid is hitting puberty and we're kind of intensifying discussions about body changes, and also amping up a little bit more lightly about, like sex and relationships, it got me thinking even further ahead about birth control. Now there's so many good options. I'm on an IUD and have been on an IUD and had one for, a really long time. But I'm just wondering, obviously 10 hasn't started menstruating yet, isn't going to for hopefully, or maybe like a year or so. And obviously that's too early, but when would you start, having discussions with kids about birth control, and more specifically, what time would you put your kid, or would you recommend putting girls on it, and what forms would you recommend for the teen years? I was on birth control pills by 13, all by myself, and they were necessary. Hopefully it won't be necessary this time, but a lot has changed since then, and I just want to be prepared and kind of think about the different options. I love my IUD, but is it too early for a kid? Would implants be better? What are your thoughts on this? I'd really love to hear. Thanks so much. Love your show, and keep on doing the great work that you're doing. Every time I listen, it encourages me to have another conversation with both my kids, even the younger one, and hopefully we're doing a better job the next time.
Excellent. I am delighted to hear that this is top of mind for you. And the good news is it is absolutely fine to talk to a 10-year-old in detail about birth control. It's even fine to talk to a 5-year-old or 4-year-old about birth control, because when you talk about sex, penis and vagina sex, any kind of sex, but usually we're doing penis and vagina sex, it's important to say, people do this because it feels good. They do it for fun. They do it for pleasure. And because somebody can get pregnant, it's important to prevent that from happening. So there's something that's called birth control, which keeps people from having a pregnancy that they aren't ready for. You can also go so far as to say, and it's really important to use birth control someday when you're ready for this part of life. That's our expectation. That's our family value, birth control. We plan our pregnancies. All right, with your 10-year-old, yeah, you got to go for it. And I also hope 13's young, and I'm so happy you could take care of yourself in that way. But I know you're probably thinking, how about, 28? As we know, that's never going to happen. So with your daughter, what I would just say is, people have sex for pleasure, and pregnancies can happen. And so there's something called birth control, and there are a bunch of different kinds, and then talk about them. So people sometimes have something called an IUD, which goes up inside the uterus. It can be a little painful, but that prevents a pregnancy from happening because an egg can't implant in the wall. You can talk about implants, so little sticks that go on the arm that have hormones that stop pregnancy from happening. You can talk about birth control pills. You can talk about, what else is out there? Diaphragms, cervical caps, and you're going to do this in order of effectiveness. You do need to say, these are the ones that work the best, okay? The top two, right? The IUD and the implants, and then the birth control pills. So we're really on this campaign to push the IUD and the implants because they work the best. You should also say, these don't always work for everybody, but one of the things about the birth control pill is there are a bunch of different kinds, so sometimes it take some time to figure out what's going to work for you. All right, there's the birth control thing. Next up, you need to talk about condoms. The only two birth controls for men or people with penises are condoms. You can show her one, explain that it rolls down the penis, it catches the semen, that kind of thing. You can actually literally show her one. The banana trick, is important. So they need to know that too, that this is required when they have any kind of penis and vagina sex. Wouldn't go so far. If you've already talked about anal sex, you can talk about that too, but probably not in this go round because you're really focusing on pregnancy prevention, as we like to say in the industry. So once you have that conversation, you then need to think about, okay, your question, right? Okay, when do you put a kid on birth control? Rule of thumb is that their period needs to be regular. So a couple years after they start their period, then it's fine to put your kid on birth control. With someone who's 10 and starting she might start her period at 11, probably not going to be sexually active at 13. We're actually seeing a big drop in sexual activity for a variety of reasons. So I wouldn't necessarily put a 13-year-old on birth control, but a 15-year-old, I would do that. And even if they're not sexually active. Now, I know this is controversial. I know people get worked up about the hormones, and y'all should know that there's lots of evidence and information now that shows that it does not harm a person with ovaries to be on birth control, generally speaking. Like the multitudes have no troubles. So then, if you want to do this, I would put her on it before she's sexually active because you never know, right? We've all been there. Next thing you know, you're hooking up with someone. Next thing you know, you and your boyfriend are getting hot and heavy and in goes the tallywhacker. So it's better to be prepared. Some people think that when you put your kid on birth control before they've had sex, that it's giving them permission. Nope, not a thing. They don't think about it that way. This is something private and people are weird about it. So you can tell your kiddo hey, this is how we roll in our family. And so I want you to be protected. Now, of course, if they're adamant they don't want to do it, that's fine. But most people are fine with it, especially if you've been sex positive and talking about this and really pushing on the idea that it's really important to plan pregnancies. One thing you can also say to her is, you know what? I had sex way before I was really ready. And so my hope for you is that you wait, as long as you can. But if you're thinking about having sex or you do have sex, please tell me. You won't be in trouble. I want to make sure you're safe. I want to make sure you feel good about your decision. There you go. Have condoms and Plan B in your household. You don't need to do that now, probably 7th grade or so. And then, so keep on talking about it. You could tell her that you have an IUD. I think that would be okay too. And I'm a super fan, but not everybody's a super fan. Not everybody can use them. Anyway, so there you go. Go for it. Talk with her openly, consistently, because she needs to know so she's ready for that part of life. And just a side note, she may not be straight, but pretty much everybody has penis and vagina sex at some point. So safer to have her on it, but again, you never know. Her choice, but really, I would do some brainwashing now. Alrighty, thanks for your question. That's it for this week. Thanks to everyone who's been calling in. The number's 206-926-1522, so please leave me a message if you have a question or a tale from the trenches. And thank you to Melanie Smith, my producer, and to Rolf, who wrote the Birds and Bees and Kids theme song.